Hi, everyone. This is Pamela Durkin, and you're listening to the Marketing by Design podcast, the show that helps interior designers market their business better. I know you don't want to be a professional marketer, but a designer who wants easy, effective marketing techniques that bring great projects your way. So let's dive in. So hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Marketing by Design, the podcast to help interior designers learn how to market their business better. So let's make it easy, right? Let's make those great clients come our way. So today I am so fangirling happy to have our guest on today. You may have heard of her. I'm not sure, but Libby Langdon has been graciously accepted my invitation to come on the podcast. And of course, she needs a proper introduction. So you know her as an interior designer. She's an author. She's a product designer. She's a makeover television personality, as well as having her own firm in New York City, Libby Langdon Interiors, right? And Libby, of course, if you've ever met her, you know that she has an easy, elegant, everyday style, super approachable, and such a bubbly personality. And she has so many licensed furniture collections and home furnishing items, including lighting for Christorama, rugs for KAS, artwork for Paragon, and a complete home collection of upholstery and case goods for Fairfield Chair, and of course, accessories for A&B Home. So her work and home products have been featured in leading shelter magazines, including, are you ready for it? Architectural Digest, House Beautiful, Traditional Home, Hampton Cottage and Gardens, Better Homes and Gardens. Let me take a breath and a sip here because there's more, right? And Women's Day. So she's also been a regular design expert. You have an excellent resume. This is amazing. On NBC's Today Show, HGTV's Small Space, Big Style, The View, The Rachel Ray Show, The Early Show, and NBC's Open House. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but let's just welcome Libby to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is so much fun. I'm super excited, and I think great things happen when we get together and we share insights and we talk about our businesses and our lives and what's happening. And so what I'm hoping is that at the end of today's episode, some people will get some real takeaways that they can use. But thanks for having me on. I'm so glad to be here.
I know. And I will say that here's a lesson learned from, having you on the podcast. Don't ask, don't get, right? So we met at a conference. Libby was a speaker there. And, I just mustered the courage to say, hey, I have this thing I'm starting. Would you be happy? Would you be able to be a guest? And of course, in sweet Liddy fashion said, absolutely. When is it? I'll be there. So, all I can say is if you put yourself out there, great things can happen. And I'm sure you can attest to something like that happening in your career as well, right, Libby?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so funny because a lot of times, and I think it sometimes boils down to something as simple as, when you go to a restaurant and there's something that you want, but you want to change it just a little bit. And
Yep.
sometimes you're going to get the crazy chef who's like, absolutely not. If you don't eat it this way, get out of my restaurant. But I would say life is too short to not ask for what you want. And I think you start to get what you want when you,
Yeah.
A, address that you want something, and B, ask for it. It's not going to just magically drop out of the sky. So
No, you can't just want it, right? You've got to also be a willing participant.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's also a little bit of not worrying about what other people are going to think, not worrying
Right.
if I ask somebody to do my podcast and they give me a smackdown, and are my feelings going to be hurt if I ask a client, oh, blah, blah, blah. I think it's not worrying about what people think and not worrying, is the waiter going to judge me if I ask
Right.
for brown rice instead of white rice? Who cares what the waiter's going to think? If you want brown rice and you don't want white rice, ask for it. So I think
100%.
important in all aspects of our lives.
I think so too. And I think also just being detached from, I mean, I think we take so many things personally. Like
Mm,
if I had asked you and you had said no, then it should have just been like, we're just moving on. It's okay. It's fine. Like that's okay because you had your reasons and I'm going to keep moving. So I think that the lesson learned is, not to necessarily be so attached to the outcome, but to be so brave in order to keep asking, to keep going after those things that are heavy on your heart that you really want to do. So that could be a
yeah.
whole podcast in itself, don't you think?
Just that right there.
Absolutely. So the thing that, the reason that I even went up and approached you, of course, you have an amazing, fun personality and you're from where I'm from. So I'm from well, you're not from New Jersey, I don't think, but, or, that area, but you live up in that area now. Cause of course your firm is
Yes.
in New York. So, we kind of have that no nonsense, getting it done spirit.
Yep.
You are super on time today, which, makes my heart happy because that's my jam too. So, the thing that I loved about what you talked about and what prompted me to even ask you to be on the show is you said it's okay for people for us to be in it, to have a business and want to make money. That is an okay thing. And I almost like jumped out of my seat and like high-fived you because we're so afraid in this industry, I think, to want to make money like it's a horrible, horrible thing. And I thought that you talked about it so eloquently. So maybe you can elaborate on that feeling like it's okay to be a creative and to do beautiful things, but to also make money, right?
Yes, absolutely. And just to give you a little bit of a background of how I even started in interior design and probably why I have that notion of melding creative and commerce. That's a
Hmm.
huge, huge part of who I am and what I do. And before I got into interior design, I used to work in the film and television business.
Hmm.
So I used to work as a producer and an actress in movies and TV and commercials and things like that. And had been married for 11 years and had a production company with my now ex-husband. And when I got divorced, I knew I wanted to get into something creative, but I wanted to move out of film and television
Hmm.
and sort of leave that. And interior design had been something I had thought about for a while, and it was something that I really grew up with. I grew up in High Point, North Carolina. So my mom was a designer, my dad was in textiles. And so for me, it was a matter of I was newly divorced. I had a mortgage to pay. And yes, I wanted to be creative and design beautiful spaces, but I had to figure out how to make money.
Right.
It wasn't just this wonderful grand endeavor of, oh, you're going to have a hot pink room. No, it was a very realistic, practical approach to interior design. And what were people wanting? What could I offer them? And how was I going to be able to make money at it? Um and and there's no shame in that. And the other thing too is in creative industries, and I think particularly interior design, we are really in touch with the way people live. We're figuring out their family life. How do they entertain? When they throw a dinner party, what does it look like? What do they want their bedroom to look like? It's very personal.
Right.
It's very personal practice. And sometimes people can feel bad when you start to talk money. And I know some people wince when it's the day to send out invoices. Some designers are like, oh,
Yes.
here to send invoices. Bullshit, people. Get your invoices out. You are not doing this just because you think it's really fun. It is a business. And I think you can also be very careful about it and have everybody feel great and excited, but you still need to make money. And
I
it's
think
interesting.
yeah, you make such a good point there because I just want to say that also too, the other thing that I see along with God forbid we should make money, but we always tend to pay ourselves last, right? Oh, well, I'll get paid when the final when the final invoice is sent. And I'm thinking, what are we waiting a year to be paid? I don't understand that. Pay yourself first, right? So to your point, and you can continue this because I'll put an E on this episode, but there may be a little swearing going on. But yes,
Yeah,
pay yourself first. I mean, what are we doing, right?
absolutely. And it is interesting too that I feel as a designer, deep down inside in your core, you have to know what your value is.
Mhm.
And when I meet a client or I meet a new client or um, we're talking about taking on a new project, I know in my just deep down in my gut, I know
Mhm.
the value that I am bringing,
Right.
and I wallow in that. I'm not boastful, I'm not gloating, but I know what I'm going to be able to bring to you, and I can very easily communicate that, and it just takes any question out of it. And every now and then I'll have one client who'll say, "Oh, I've got all these invoices and it's costing a lot, and my house is costing a lot more to build, and blah, blah, blah." And I will fire an email or pick up the phone and call right back and say, "You know what? I am offering you great value, and this is why." And so I think you need to be sure, just take an inventory of what you're bringing to the table and own it. Own it 150% and never feel bad for asking what you're worth. And if you've got somebody who doesn't think you're worth it, that's not somebody you should work with. Trust me, there will be 3 other people down the road that are going to understand your value once you're able to easily communicate it.
I agree 100%. And I think that the other thing that people tend to do is when you're having an uncomfortable conversation, you want to fill all those gaps. And I've found that silence speaks so many volumes. So if someone asks you a question as to why you do things a certain way or whatever, you give them the answer, which are the facts, right? And then you let it sit. You let that simmer instead of trying to fill that empty pause and make excuses or try to make them feel better or let that, not emptiness sit there. Let that pause continue and they will come around to it, I would say for sure. So,
Yes.
sometimes, and then the other thing I would say to people is script out the questions you have gotten, something that people have asked, or have your family or someone in your office ask some tough questions, right? And then role
Yeah.
play and answer those. And then what I do is I put that in my what I call a shock and awe box, which I send to clients beforehand. And that answers a lot of those questions ahead of time. And so you've had that time to think about how you want to answer that question, why you're answering that question, what that value is.
Yes.
And then once you do it, of course, long enough, you can totally stand there in that, and, sit in it, as you say, wallow in it
Yes.
and be very comfortable as to why you're charging what you're charging and what you bring to the table.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For sure.
So yes, everyone, we need to be cool with making money. And, that's going to be the title of this episode is Show Me the Money, because it is.
Yes.
We need to be comfortable and confident because as interior designers, we are affecting, just like you said, the most intimate spaces in someone's lives. We are
Yes.
in the thick of it. And it's so incredibly important how much effect we can have on someone's space.
Absolutely. I love the way you said it. Be cool with making money. That pretty much sums it all up. We know we want to make money and we want people to show us money, but you need to be cool with making money.
Right. We're having t-shirts made after this one. That's okay. We'll be selling them. There'll be merch
Love it.
after this
Be cool with
episode.
making money. Yes.
And then, so along those lines, you were talking about also this thing that stuck. There was like 3 big things that stuck with me when I heard you speak. And you said, "I know my lane. I know my lane is sort of, the easy breezy, type of look for people, easy, elegant, everyday style. That's my lane. I know how to stay in my lane. I know what my lane is, and that others should know their lane as well." So you can speak to one, like how you discovered your lane, right? And
Mhm.
then how people can help, can discover their own lane and stay in it. for
Yes.
success.
And I think it's very important. And for me, it almost started out as kind of a marketing, exercise where you take the essence of who you are, what you do, and who you work with, and you boil it down into just a little nugget, a little
Right.
sound bite. And that was how I came up with easy, elegant, everyday style. And I knew I needed to find, because I started in interior design later in life, I knew I needed to find my lane. I needed to find my lane. I think I knew I wasn't going to be Architectural Digest, all fancy, crazy, over the top all the time. Can I go there every now and then? Oh, yes, I can. But my nuts and bolts, my meat and potatoes, is the easy, elegant, everyday style. And how I came up with that was easy is me. That's my personality. I'm
Right.
approachable. It should be fun. Design should be accessible. The elegant is you can still have a very functional, family friendly home, but it can be beautiful. The design can be incredible. The details can be fabulous. And then the everyday part is that's who my clients are. They're real people. They have kids, they have pets, they have friends who drink red wine. So that's how I got the easy, elegant, everyday style. And I encourage people to sit and really boil down what the essence is of what they do and come up with that, because also that becomes a common thread as you are communicating who you are and what you do. It just becomes a wonderful way for you to in just a quick second let somebody know who you are and what you do and how you work. And then the second part to that, I think, is knowing your lane. And I feel like knowing your lane doesn't necessarily mean you're staying within a certain interior design style. I do traditional, we do contemporary, we do transitional. I work in a lot of different areas. So knowing your lane is more knowing your audience, um, knowing budget areas, where are you strong, where can you get stronger, and then just being set in where you are. I also think knowing your lane is very important in how you communicate and present your business, things like your
Mhm.
website, your social media, all of that. My easy, elegant, everyday style just boils back in and infiltrates every aspect of my business. And so once you have your lane, it really helps you stay in the direction. And I think it also helps you reach potential clients. So, there are ways to sort of structure things so that you're reaching the person that's right for you.
That's in the
Um,
lane, right? That's
that's
traveling in
in
the
the
same lane
lane.
that you are. Yeah, and you said so many things there.
Absolutely.
So like even the knowing your lane, I call it knowing your North Star. It's sort of like the big idea that you're always working towards, or that next level that you're leveling up to.
Yes.
The thing that you said that I think is so incredible to bring up again is that your personality is part of knowing your lane. I think there's a lot of people who feel like they need to be somebody else, right? They're aspiring to be maybe another designer, they're
Right.
aspiring to look like someone else or be like someone else, but there's some friction there. And I'm not saying like client friction, but just internal, like it's kind of hard, and you're just like, this is terrible. So I would, like to point that out, that part of your personality really helps you work with people that are similar, or that you can get along with, right? Or that you can communicate effectively with, because that
Yes.
makes such a huge difference. And like all of my clients are like me, like we're like this, boom, 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 decision, decision, this is none of this.
Yeah.
I don't know. And there are people who are good at that and I do have a lot of patience. I've been told that, but I love it when I have a former CEO, a former executive, a current
Yes.
executive making decisions and going, "We're going. Let's just go."
Yeah. Yep.
And for me, that's good, and that's my Jersey girl side.
Yeah.
So I think knowing that parts of your personality and how you like to work also tie into the lane that you're creating between the work that you do, the type of clients you bring on.
For sure, for sure. And, you know, for me, I again, tagging back to the messaging and what are you getting across to people on the outside looking in, and what is their first impression of you? And I would say a lot of people find me, on social media or they'll go on my website, and I feel that that's very representative of who I am, and there's
Right.
tons of video, and there's me on there kind of being goofy, and maybe I'm in my slippers, or it's just that's the secret sauce for me. That is the secret sauce for me, letting people know who I am, what I'm all about, and what my process is. So, and I think knowing my lane helps me get that across for sure.
Yeah, and I will say that as many designers who hate to be on video, it is such a great way for people to get to know you and get to know your personality and feel like they know you. And I'm sure you've had this so many times. So many people have probably come up to you and say, "I feel like I know you." And you're like, "Great. Okay." So
Yeah.
it's just such a connector, and that attracts people to you that are attracted to your personality. So naturally, you're getting people who are already in your vibe. The
Yes.
other thing that you said, which was so great, is just because you pick a lane doesn't mean that you'll never do anything outside the lane. It's just that you're having a very focused conversation about the type of projects that you want for the most part, or that is your big idea or your North Star or your lane. So
Yes.
to be afraid that you'll never be able to take on another project that's outside of this is not at all the case, but it's setting the tone, right? To your
Yes.
point of everything that you're doing on the big idea front.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the thing that's so great about it is I also feel like every year I get better as a designer. And so while I know my lane, it's kind of what you're saying with the North Star. I am pushing myself. I am
Mhm.
having more fun. I'm being bolder with things. I used to be afraid to ask a client, "What would you think if we painted the ceiling cobalt blue?" But you get a couple clients who are like, "Actually, that would be cool."
Yes.
And so it's kind of ties back to what you're saying. If you don't ask and you're too scared of how somebody might judge you, you
Mhm.
might not take that chance, which would help you grow as a designer. And I just feel like I'm a better designer every year because I take more chances and I have more fun. And it doesn't necessarily mean design chances that cost more. It doesn't
Right.
cost that much more to paint the ceiling blue than it does to paint it white. So in that respect, it's true. The lane has wiggle room,
It
but there's that
moves, it
nice,
shifts. Yeah.
yeah, there's that nice middle line that just lets you know you're still on your right track.
Right. And I think too, when you say, "Hey," you say to a client, "Hey, what do you think about trying this?" I think clients love to be sort of in on the decision together. Like, should we do it? Should we do
Yes.
the, and they just think that's the greatest thing. So yes, absolutely. If you have some brilliant idea and you're in a client meeting, for sure, I would just float it past your client because, hey, you never know. They might just be ready to take it. That's where that trust, I think that's when you start to realize as a designer, you've gotten to a point where people, they really admire you and they look up to you and they trust you. And that's the type
Yeah.
of clients that you start to get over and over again. And they really want to hand this off to you and say, create something because I'm so excited to be here with you. Right.
Yes. Oh, that's when the magic happens.
That's when it's like, whoa, yeah, the
Yeah,
angels start singing.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Um, And then, so kind of along these same lines, because we've been really this theme and this thread's been running throughout this whole episode, is that we should be our best PR person, right? We should be the ones saying, putting ourselves out there, not necessarily like you said, boasting, but being like, "Hey, I'm doing this." just want, I'm letting you know I'm doing this. I'm trying this. I'm, pushing myself in this way. So how are you your best PR person? How can people do that in their own
I
businesses?
I really feel that we are all our own best PR people, and I feel that deep down inside, you know who you are and you know what you really want.
Hmm.
And an outside person will not ever be able to convey the passion, the excitement, the reasoning, the the inspiration for why you created a room the way you created a room,
Right.
or why you painted the ceiling a color, or why you used this wallpaper. And um that excitement and that passion is what makes people take notice. And um so in that respect, we're our own best PR people because we're the ones who can really convey the messaging better than anybody else can.
Right.
And sort of going back to what you said a minute ago about people who are scared to be on camera or they're squeamish about being on camera. A couple of things happen when you video yourself. If you video yourself walking through a project that you've done, and it doesn't matter if your 10-year-old son is videoing you, somebody from your office, or look, let's face it, I am in the airport all the time. I have all kinds of drivers take videos of me just before I get on the airplane. So pretty much you have no excuse to not have someone video you. But I think what happens is as you're taking someone through a project that you've designed, again, you're the only person who knows, why did you pick that ECAT print on the chair? Why did you use that finish on the coffee table? So once you start to get into talking about what you do and why you've done it, it actually becomes quite easy. Um, and so also for me, and what you were saying earlier is, you have to remember there are a lot of people that have never hired interior designers before. And there
Yes.
are people now more and more interested in hiring interior designer. They're intimidated, they're scared. They have this notion that, you're going to show up in their house and you're going to say, you have to do these hunter green velvet drapes. If you don't, the whole room's going to be a catastrophe. So people have these notions of what an interior designer is, and we're bossy and we tell them what to do and we're going to cost a gazillion dollars. So when you're able to record yourself, you demystify design, you make it
Yes.
approachable, you make it accessible. And that's part of being your own best PR person. You're taking your messaging into your own hands. You're not having somebody else say who you are and what you do and why you do it. And I think the other thing too now is, because of social media, I get more information out this way now than I ever did when I had PR companies working with me and for me. And by the way, even if you have someone repping you as PR, you still have to generate all the copy and all the writing and why you did what you did. So
Right.
I just, gosh, I tell people, get out there, get your message out there, and be fearless about it. What is the worst thing that could happen? Somebody says, "Oh, wow, she thinks she's fancy. She designed that mansion, whatever." You can do it in a very graceful, non-boastful way, but it's so important to let people know who you are and what you do and what you're all about. So,
I think in that being in that creative industry too, like we want to differentiate ourselves, right? Instead of letting a
yes.
picture talk for us and letting a potential client, you know, come up with this whole story in their mind of how this came about or how easily this looks or whatever. If you're discussing all the things that happens and all the changes, of course, things get changed and then that,
Yeah.
might throw some things off. And so having those conversations also brings it back to the craft and the uniqueness of
Yep.
interior design and the interior designer and the interior design and customer relationship and how incredibly important the team is. I mean, all of that brings us back to why people hire designers in the first place and not just buy something off the internet, right?
Exactly. And it goes back again to your messaging and your what you've boiled down your essence to
Hmm.
be. And I feel like when you communicate that and you can tell people, oh, this is why I did the light finish on the coffee table because it's contrasting in front of the rug. There's that moment of exactly what you're saying. People are registering and saying, wow, I never would have thought of that, or I didn't know that. And it's not meant to intimidate, it's meant as a confidence
Hmm.
builder on their part to know that you have the big picture in mind and you're seeing the whole enchilada and you're not just chipping away or piecemealing it the way most people would do if they didn't have an interior designer.
Absolutely. I just had this conversation come up with a client in a meeting where they said, "Well, we're gonna do a dark light fixture. What do you think about the frame on this piece of art?" And I was like, "Well, I want that dark too because I want your eye to be moved around the room, to be caught by this piece and to tie in that element." And they were like, "Oh, I never even thought of that." But these are things that as designers we're like, and you're probably like, "Yeah, of course. I
Right.
mean, that makes perfect sense to me." And
Yeah.
maybe a lot of other listeners going, "Absolutely, that I do that too." But we don't talk about it. We
I
need to
know.
talk about it, saying why you're thinking of like the spaces, how they relate to one another, how it moves your eye around, how it keeps you interested, how it then has an emotional effect on you, right? So,
Yes.
mm,
Absolutely.
this is why we
Absolutely.
can never be replaced. We can never be replaced.
Never. And I think what's fun too is these days, when I first started in interior design in like 2004, there wasn't a lot of reason for me to interact with other interior designers. I was sort of in my own little bubble and I was in my own little world. And then social media happened. And I feel like we all got this really great conversation going.
Yeah,
And now I just feel like so many people in the very best way are design hungry. So there's enough work for everybody.
right.
So I feel like as designers, we are way more of a community than we ever knew before. And there's enough work to go around. And it's so important to let people know what you're doing and why you're doing it. You're not letting some big secret, you're not letting the cat out of the bag. You're not giving away trade secrets.
Right.
It's really more demystifying it and letting clients know the value and that you have the big picture in mind.
Yeah, and then what happens, because a lot of them don't even know what happens. It's very nerve-wracking. So I think
Oh
all of
yeah.
that, just talking about what happens in meetings, is so incredibly important because like you said,
Yeah.
so many clients have never hired designers before, and and you would think that people with million-dollar homes have, and they haven't. So let's just
And they
put that let's just put that
right.
out there. So,
Yeah.
$2 million home, several of those never hired a designer before. All day long, I hear that all day long. So, um, just keep that in mind that we just keep talking as an industry. And then, yeah, being connected, like even the conference that I saw you at, I had gone and met 5 women that I had met on the internet from all across the country, other
Oh,
designers, and we had become friends um, during our time when everyone was sitting at home trying to figure out what to do. And, that just opened up a whole world. So just making those connections with people from all
mm.
over the country, designers with different perspectives who are doing different things. It's so inspiring. So I definitely encourage everyone to use social media for good, right? For sure.
Oh, yeah. There's so much goodness out there.
There is. You just have to look for it. Well, so Libby, I want to say thank you for giving us so many cool things to think about in our business and how we can stay in our lane and kind of shout our accolades from the rooftops and be our own best PR person and how we are totally fine, totally cool with making money in our business as well. And so tell us, is there anything exciting that you want to talk about? And of course, where can people find you?
Yes. Okay. Well, people can find me on my social handles are Libby Langdon. And my website is libbylangdon.com. And I do have some exciting things. I have new furniture introductions for my furniture collection for Fairfield. And we'll be launching those at the April market.
Awesome.
And then I've got my cast rugs, and then lighting for Christorama, Paragon wall decor, and accessories for A&B Home. And yeah, it's a very exciting time.
You just have a few things happening. Nothing major.
Side hustle. It's
So if
side hustle.
Yeah, so if anyone ends up going to market in April, they're going to track you down because I'm sure you'll be out there talking about your beautiful products.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I hope to see people. And I love when people reach out and DM me or contact me. It's just fun and kind of what you're saying, Pam. It's just a nice way to connect with people. And every now and then you're walking down a market hallway and you're like, oh my God.
That's awesome. So, of course, if you missed all of that, that'll all be in the show notes on how to find Libby. So you don't have to be worried if you happen to be driving or anything like that. But thank you, Libby, so much for
Thank
giving
you.
us so much good information. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show. And I'm sure we're going to see some great introductions from you come in April market, right?
Thank you so much. Love chatting with you and can't wait to see you soon in 2023.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing by Design podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on all the major platforms and catch our next episode in just a few weeks. If you enjoyed today's show, head over to www.pamela-durkin.com to gain access to our free resources. Thanks for tuning in, and in the meantime, always keep marketing by design.